aspects of it. So let us see how the security works, and then we'll go to FSM and then to global HR. So security is handled in security console. That's what we said. So go to security console and then you create. So here before going to roles, we said that there are different types of roles. So before going to roles, let us look into the users part of it and then come to the roles. So I can create a user account. Okay. Now creating a user account for a user and creating a user account for an employee, both of them you have to perceive it differently. So when I am just creating a user account, I am creating a user account for somebody. Okay. It can be anybody. So here I can choose the person type as none or worker. So what does it mean? What is the difference between none and worker? I am just creating a user account. Anybody can use that user account to access the particular instance, access this instance. But whenever I say associated person type is worker, it means that that user account is for the employee who is hired in that particular company. Okay. Now this user account which we are creating now with person type, associated person type as none, then it is not for an employee. It is for a user. Okay. It can be any user. Later, I can associate this user account to somebody employee, some other employee later. But at the time of creating, I'm clearly saying that this associated person type is none. Then user category. What is this user category? You can create your own user categories, which can define the password policy and the password resetting policy, the complexity of the password, then notifications, what type of notifications can be sent. So when we go to user categories, I'll just talk about that. So for now, let me just create a user account with first name as first, last name as last. And you see the username is automatically generated with first name dot last name. So how is this coming automatically? This is coming because of the rule for the default user category, which is set over here, that the username should be the first name dot last name. So I have certain rules in the user category which I can use to generate the username, and I can change it. This is the default username which gets generated, right? And you can give the email and the phone of the for the user account, and give the password. You can say welcome 123, and you can also confirm the password welcome 123. So here, I don't want to add any role. I just created a user account, right? With first dot last, and the password is welcome 123. So let me log out of this particular HCM implementation user and then log in as first dot last and see what can I see inside that. So log in with welcome 123 over here. And you see, you don't see anything, right? Me, just simple tools and then the others over here. That's all. So you can see, that from the work list area, sorry, the Springboard area and the navigator, you don't see any functions, right? You don't see anything which you can use for good purpose over here, or for any transactions. Why? Because this is just a user account. There is no role associated to this particular user. Okay. Now, can you say this user is an employee in the company? No, it is just a user account. That's all. That person is not at all an employee yet, right? Now, you can associate this person to an employee using manage person task. So now again, we go into the implementation user. So as an implementation user, I'm trying to test by creating an account and then, by trying to add the roles and see how it behaves, so that I need to understand all these things, right? So I go to security console and then I say, I go to the users over here and then search for the user first dot last. I get it. So I can reset the password. I can change the password. I can log the account. I can compare it with various users. So now I go inside this particular user and then I start adding the role. Okay. Now we'll talk about roles. You can also see the password expiration date. You can reset the password. We'll talk about different types of roles, but let me add a role over here. So I want to add a role to this particular employee. So let's say I want to add a human resource specialist role. So how are these roles? What are these roles which are coming? We'll talk about that in the roles section. So let me say I want to add a HR specialist job role to this particular employee. So I have added a role to this particular employee now. Now you see that here add role, I can add any role. There is something called add auto provisioned roles. We will talk about auto provisioning roles later. But understand that auto provisioning roles are those roles which are automatically added to all the accounts or the users who match certain conditions. What are those conditions will be there in the role mapping definitions, which we will see later. But for now, I just added a manual role. So just save and close this particular thing. Now, sometimes you may not have to run any process, but sometimes you may have to run some process after adding the roles. Let us see if it allows me to just review the changes without running that particular process. So I am logging into first.last and then say welcome 1, 2, 3. So you log into this and then you see that you got two things extra. So you see my client groups, you got the Springboard area, and then you see benefits administration, you got only one Springboard thing. For benefits administration, there is no quick actions. For my client groups, you see quick actions also have come. So what does it mean? The role which you have added is the HR specialist job role. Now that roles in Fusion are containing are hierarchical based. That means one role will import some other roles. Some role that roles imported roles will import some other roles. Then those roles, it will continue until the role has imported a leaf role, which is a job role or which is a duty role or which is a privilege. Okay, so the roles will have access to the different types of privileges, and this one we'll talk about what are privileges later. But understand that roles are hierarchical. It's a tree sort of a structure. So depending on what role you add, just by adding the role, what happens is the tree structure gives you access to this. That's why you get so many functions access. Similarly, in the navigator also, you can see that you got a lot of function access. But can the employee go, let's say we added the HR specialist role over here. Can the employee go and perform, can the employee go and perform any task is what you should know. So let's say the employee wants to hire an employee, and let us see in which legal employer is available over here. You don't have any legal employer. You can't search for anything over here. It doesn't show anything. Why is that it doesn't show any data over here? It is because there is no data security which is given. So what does this all mean? You created a user account, you added a role, but just by adding a role gives you access to the functions. But what is the use if you cannot use any data? What is the use if you cannot, work on those functions? A HR specialist should be able to hire an employee, but for hiring an employee, the first input, the first important thing required is the legal employer. So why is that the legal employer is not visible? It is not visible because there is no data security for that particular role. So let us see now how to add data security to the role which we have added to that particular employee. Now, again, roles are divided into predefined roles and custom roles. So what are predefined roles? Predefined roles are those roles. Predefined roles are those roles which are delivered by Oracle. Custom roles are those roles which are created by the customer or the client. Okay. So usually in the case is that they don't use the predefined roles because if there is any change, it will directly impact the user. Okay, it will directly impact the customer. So that's why they copy the predefined role and add that copied role with the data security to the users. Add that copied role to with the data security to the users. So if you take a look at the user over here, we added this role, right? Now, how do you know this is a predefined role or a custom role? All the predefined roles will always start with Ora underscore. All the predefined roles will always start with Ora underscore. Ora underscore means Oracle delivered. You cannot create a custom role with Ora underscore. It will not allow you to create. Okay, so these are the things which you should know. Any role which start with aura underscore is always predefined role. So for this predefined role, I have to give the data security, right? So the data security, I can give it from various places. I can give it from I can go to my client groups in workforce structures over here, or I can also go to settings and actions, go to setup and maintenance, and then search for the data security over there, and then give it from there also. So you can see data roles and security profiles. So here I have to give the data security for the data role for that particular employee. Now there are few ways of giving data roles. Okay, first way is I add the role to the employee. Okay, I add the job role to the employee and then give the data security for that. So what does I mean is, so I say aura for human resource specialist job role. So if I search with this, I see that there is already a role which is there. This is a predefined role, but there is no security profiles. There is no security profiles which are assigned. That's the reason why the employee which we or the user account which we created did not have access to the data security. So what do you do now over here? This is one way of adding the data role. The second way is, instead of adding this role to the employee and giving data security to that role, the second way is to directly create a data role over here, which will ask which job role you want to use. Then you give the job role and add the created data role directly to the employee, instead of adding this role to the employee and giving the data security to the role. I am adding a data role directly to the employee, which implicitly has the job role as well as the data security. Okay, so these are the things which you should know. All right, so let's say these are the two ways of doing it. Now let me edit this particular thing over here and then see how we can give the data security or the data role. The data role always requires a job role. Data role always requires a job role. Without giving the job role, you cannot create the data role or you cannot edit the data role. Okay, so go to the next this thing. You can see various security profiles which it is asking you to add. Now these security profiles give access to the data. So what security profiles are there? So to the user account which you created, you added this particular role, right? Now that user to whom you added this role, what is the organization security profile which you want to create? What does that mean? That means this user to whom you added this role, which organizations he can access. Now in Fusion, anything is an organization. Anything is an organization, right? From enterprise, legal employer, payroll statutory unit, business unit, department, okay, tax reporting unit, worker union. Anything is called as an organization classification. Organization is a word which is loosely used, okay, to represent any of these. So which are the departments that you want this fellow to access, or which are the legal employers that you want this fellow to access? So you can secure by giving the data security profile for organization. Now I'll show you how to create organization security profiles after this, but for now, if you want this role to have access to all the organizations, then Oracle has delivered view all security profile for each one of these, which will allow you to give access to all the data. So view all organizations means all these organization classifications, whichever I told you, this role can access all the data. Instead of restricting it by classification, or instead of restricting it by list or by hierarchy, I want to show all the organizations to this particular role. Okay, then similarly, can I restrict the positions in those organizations by department, by business unit, by positions, by position hierarchy and area of responsibility? In which case I create a position security profile. Otherwise, I want to show all of them, then I create view all positions. Then similarly, which country data I want to show to that particular role, I can say view all countries. Which legislative data group, this is like business group in EBS. So which legislative data group? I can say all LDGs. If I want to restrict the HR to look at only US specific legislative data groups, then I associate a security profile which contains access to only US country, and then put that security profile over here, and this security profile will be added to the role, and this role will be added to the user, and then user will get access to only that particular LDG. Then which persons I want this role to access. I can use view all persons, or I can have my own security criteria over here. So you observe the difference between people and workers. People can be anybody. All people need not be workers. All workers are definitely people, right? So you should know different types of people which are there. Okay, non-workers are also people. Contingent workers are also people, right? And contacts are also people, all right? So that's the difference. If I say view all people, then this will give access to all the people. Okay, now what is this public person? This person is person. What is this public person? Public person means public data of the person. Which person's public data can be visible to the role? So even this also has the view all security profile which is there, and you can view all the data, all the public data of all the people. Okay, now if you say for an employee, for the person security profile, what should that employee see? Employee should see his own data, right? So here you will have view own record for the person. Okay, but for public person, you can say I can search anybody's public data on my company's intranet, right? So I will have access to all the people's public data, right? So that's the difference between person and public person. Similarly, I can have document type security profile. I can give restriction on the security profile. I can restrict which payrolls this role can access. I can restrict which flow patterns which this role can access. All these are payroll concepts. When we go to payroll, we'll talk about it. And then I can restrict which talent pools I can access. We have public talent pools or all talent pools, even private talent pools also. And I can also restrict which elements this user can access. So you can see view all elements. So what did I do? Basically, I have given view all predefined security profiles to this particular role. So you see now it is a train, it shows you everything. You can restrict by organization hierarchy or tree, or you can restrict by classification, or you can restrict by list. You can include and exclude. So like this, you can review everything, and then you can go through every screen, or you can review and then you submit. So what is that you did? You added a role to a user. To that role, I have given data security now. Now, how do you test that the data security has worked or not? I log out of this user and then log into the first dot last user, and then see if I can access the legal employers now. Now, if I search for this, you will see that the security profiles are associated. Now you can revoke the security profiles as well from here. Now let us log out of this particular user account, that is the implementation user account, and look into the first dot last user, and you can see that so go to my client groups, go to new person, go to hire an employee. So this user has access to all the organizations, right? So he should be able to see all the legal employers over here. Okay, you should be able to see all the legal employees. So that's the thing. Now, if somebody asks, how can I restrict these legal employees to show only US1 and US2, which means that this HR specialist should be able to hire only in US, and not in any other country. It is then that you create the security profiles for that particular user and modify the role. So how do you create the security profile is the question. Since we have seen different types of security profiles for the role over there, you can always create various security profiles from workforce structures. Come here and you can
Shiva, sorry for interruption.
Yeah.
So instead of logging out like every time, can't we open in another browser the same
Yeah, we can
sign?
do that. Not in the same thing. I have to open an incognito window
Okay, okay.
and
Yeah,
then do it. Okay.
yeah, just got doubt. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So here you have security profiles. So you see person security profiles, organization security profiles, position, LDG security profile, country, this thing. So which is that you want to restrict? You want to restrict the organization access. So you can see, you can secure by this. And if you search for the view all organization security profile, it is there over here, right? It gives access to all of them. Now, let's say I want to create a new organization security profile over here. Okay, so do I want to restrict it by hierarchy? In which case, by which department or by which department tree or organization tree? So when we go to global HR, we'll talk about trees. You can build the trees, the hierarchy of organizations, hierarchy of trees, or you can choose which top organization you want to give the access. Let's say a marketing vice president should have access to his entire hierarchy. So you give his organization hierarchy with the top organization as the marketing hierarchy, right? So he will have access to only his particular hierarchy. Or you are talking about manager, right? So a manager, a vice president is also a manager, right? Obviously, it is a higher up in the hierarchy. So you should create a person security profile. Okay, and then you can use the manager hierarchy so that he will be able to access only his organization employees and not all the employees. So you should have a good understanding of which is the best level of the data restriction or the highest level of data restriction, which if given to that particular user will give the proper security. Okay, I can restrict by organization, I can restrict by person, I can restrict by area of responsibility. So which ones is the better one to give is the question. Okay, so here I want to secure it by organization list because I said US1 legal entity and US2 legal entity. So I'll choose the organization available over here. I search for the organization and here it asks for the classification name. So classification name, I want to give it like by legal employer, please show me what are the US legal employers which are there. So I want to restrict it by the US1 legal entity. And I also want to restrict it. I also want to add US2 legal entity as well. Now you can see this include and exclude over here. Include means only these two will be included in the security profile. Exclude means except these two, rest all are included. Okay, you are specifying only the exclusions. Here you are specifying only the inclusions. Okay, so understand the restriction. Now I have created a organization security profile. Now what I should do? Creating the organization security profile alone is not sufficient because I have to go and modify the data role with this organization security profile. So here, instead of giving view all organizations, which is a predefined security profile, I will give my own security profile over here. Okay. Like that, I can make changes in other security profiles also. It's not that I can do it only in one security profile or one change in this role. Now, this particular employee. So let's say I have modified this particular profile now. So let us go to the first dot last user and then see the changes. So sometimes the security related changes might not be visible. So you'll have to run the what do you call run users and roles synchronization process, which will import the data from the LDAP, the latest LDAP data over there, so that you can see the changes. Okay. So hire a legal, hire an employee. Now you see that you have access to only two of them. Okay, so this is how the data security works or the data role works. Okay, so you can have the security at the data role level and then can say this is the only data that you can access.